Today was day 9 of the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard defamation trial. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, welcome to Legalbytes. If you are new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel we explain the law one bite at a time. So today we saw 3 more witnesses take the stand. Those were first Tara Roberts, the manager of Johnny Depp's island in the Bahamas. Second, Dr. Shannon Curry, a forensic psychologist. And third, Officer Melissa Saenz of the Los Angeles Police Department. In my opinion, all 3 of these witnesses ended up being favorable for Johnny Depp's case, but most favorable of the 3 was Dr. Curry's testimony. So let's take them one by one. First, Tara Roberts testified via a live video link about her experiences seeing Johnny Depp and Amber Heard on the island in the Bahamas during their various visits over the years. This was the first live video link testimony that we got to see in this case, and minus a couple super small delays, it actually went pretty smoothly. And although the viewing experience still wasn't quite as great as seeing an in-person witness, it was far more enjoyable than watching the video deposition testimony that we've experienced so far. Anyway, as far as the substance of her testimony goes, she did testify to some specific occasions that Johnny and Amber were there on the island, including the wedding that they had there. She also introduced video footage of the inside of Johnny's house from the closet out into the living room. And when asked if Amber ever wore makeup in front of Miss Roberts said that if Amber ever did wear any makeup, it was pretty natural looking because she didn't look like she had any makeup on. Of course, this is going to the idea that Amber may have been covering up injuries with makeup, and her answer on this question was, I think, actually pretty good because it was an indication that she wasn't overselling her testimony, and it overall was a pretty reasonable response. Anyway, probably the most important part of her testimony was when she was asked about a particular argument which occurred between Johnny and Amber. Ms. Roberts testified that she saw them in a heated argument during which Amber called Johnny an old washed-up actor, and where Johnny replied that Amber had hit him with a metal can. Ms. Roberts testified that neither of them seemed to know that Ms. Roberts or any of the other staff could see their argument, but it was specifically at the point that Amber started to pull Johnny into the house in a vicious manner, or viciously, to use Ms. Roberts' term, that the staff intervened. Ms. Roberts testified that Amber had been clawing and grabbing at Johnny and his clothes and hair, and when Ms. Roberts left the scene with Johnny, she could see that he had a mark across the bridge of his nose. So Ms. Roberts said that she grabbed a bag of ice for it so that it wouldn't swell. The next day, Ms. Roberts testified that she still saw the same mark on Johnny's nose and that she saw no injuries on Amber's face or body. Then we saw Amber's attorney, Elaine Bretoff, go up on cross-examination. Now, again, I'm one attorney and I have my own opinions and my own style, and that is not necessarily the only opinion or style, nor is it necessarily a correct one. It could very well be that Ms. Bretoff's style is appealing to some, but personally, I am not one of those people. She asked a lot of open-ended questions on cross-examination, which is generally not what you're supposed to do. It doesn't make your job any easier for the attorney, and it makes the testimony come out a bit more messy. You generally do want to be leading an adverse witness through your narrative rather than giving them the control to tell theirs. And to make matters worse, it seemed that when she would get an answer that she seemingly didn't exactly want, or at least not in the way that she wanted it, she would get a little huffy about it. And then when Johnny's attorney would object, she would get visibly and audibly huffy again, and even at 1 or 2 points started to try to argue with Judge Ascarate on her ruling on those objections. One question that she did ask that was effective was about Ms. Roberts' salary. She apparently earns $120,000 a year, which goes to her potential bias to testify more favorably for Johnny Depp than would be accurate or maybe fair. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is what is happening, but it at least puts that thought in the mind of the jury. She also asked questions that revealed Miss Roberts wasn't around Johnny and Amber all the time when they were on the island, nor was Miss Roberts there when Amber allegedly threw a metal can at Johnny's face. But other than that, she didn't really draw much from this witness, and Johnny's attorney did a good job of objecting to Miss Bretoff's questions, which effectively put her off balance and interrupted her flow, and overall seemed to fluster her. Anyway, next we heard from Dr. Shannon Curry. Now, the first thing that we noticed about Dr. Curry was, well, The chat kind of exploded in the comment section because she is a very beautiful person, but we very quickly learned that she also is a very intelligent and experienced person as well. Specifically, she's a clinical and forensic psychologist and was hired by Johnny Depp's team as an expert to evaluate Amber's mental state. Although this apparently was her first time testifying in a civil trial, she seems to have a lot of trial experience, or at least testimonial experience, perhaps in criminal matters, because she was a very, very effective witness. She gave very good explanations. She was very clear in her explanations and breaking down a lot of concepts from her field of expertise. She made eye contact with the jury, and overall, she carried herself with a very good presence. Now, one thing to note about her is that she was hired by the Depp legal team as an expert, but her evaluation of Amber was actually compelled by the court. Some people found this to be unfair because Johnny was not required to go through the same kind of evaluation as Amber was. But the reason why this court ordered this analysis was because Amber put her mental state at issue in this litigation by claiming that she has PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, as a result of Johnny's actions. And the reason why putting that at issue would lead to a court-ordered evaluation is because when Amber makes a claim that she has something like PTSD, Johnny's team needs the opportunity to explore that claim and whether it is legitimate or not. But because Johnny hasn't made any similar claims about PTSD or anything very specific like that, there was no need to order an evaluation of him in this case. Anyway, because Dr. Curry was testifying as an expert witness, she went through her long history of education, experience, certifications, and credentials. Now, unlike a lay witness, which is all of the other witnesses that we've seen so far, as an expert, she has the ability to review all of Amber's medical documents, including those from Dr. Kipper and nurse Erin Borum, as well as the audio and video recordings, photos, witness statements, and declarations of other witnesses. In addition, in order to evaluate Amber, she also sat down with her twice to evaluate her mental state and specifically to evaluate her claim that she has PTSD. Now, the purpose of evaluating all of these sources of information is so that she can form an overall professional expert opinion on the issues of Amber's mental state. And ultimately, what she found was that Amber did not have PTSD like she claimed, but that she had some other stuff going on, which was actually really, really helpful to Johnny. Specifically, Dr. Curry named 2 personality disorders. Those are borderline personality disorder, or BPD, and histrionic personality disorder, or HPD. The main focus of these 2 diagnoses in this testimony appeared to be BPD, or borderline personality disorder. And honestly, it ran for miles and miles and miles to bolster Johnny's testimony about his observations of Amber throughout their relationship. Now, as I mentioned, according to Dr. Curry, BPD is a type of personality disorder. Dr. Curry said that a personality disorder is when there is a dysfunction in the traits that make us who we are by our thoughts and our behaviors. BPD in particular creates an instability in personal relationships, emotions, and behaviors. And Dr. Curry also said that people with BPD very often show great inner anger, tend to be passive aggressive, can explode on people, and tend to be very needy and self-centered, socially sophisticated, and manipulative. She said that they can also show a lot of cruelty and are also prone to externalizing blame and massively exaggerating. And Dr. Curry also said that people with BPD often feel terror at the thought of abandonment and are often hypersensitive to being offended. As an example, if someone shows up late, it might be perceived by the person with BPD as a form of abandonment. And to bring you back to day 1, the opening statements, when I said that there are some themes that were starting to show up, starting from their opening statements, both of Amber Heard's team and Johnny Depp's team. On Johnny Depp's side, the thematic buzzwords were exaggerate and dramatic. Here, Dr. Curry said that people with BPD can also really exaggerate and tend to be dramatic. All in all, this testimony really nailed Johnny's case, in my opinion, because they were able to essentially track Johnny's testimony and reinforce it with someone who has a lot of credentials in a relevant area of expertise. And ultimately, it looks at this point like he has an incredibly strong case, in my opinion. Obviously, I am not a juror and I don't have any information as to how any of the jurors on this current jury might think about all the testimony so far. But to me, this was a pretty strong bit of evidence to support Johnny. Now, I should mention that in our live stream panel on this channel, we got to see some very strong opinions as to whether or not this testimony may or may not have gone too far in concluding the ways that it did. Particularly, there was a concern that Dr. Curry may have taken the diagnoses she found in Amber and then used that to possibly improperly conclude on some of the broad scale that Amber had all of these individualized tendencies that you can see in someone with BPD. And along with that came a concern that the testimony about these diagnoses can also lead others to stigmatize people with these disorders. Now, I'm not saying that there was necessarily anything that Dr. Curry said here that would instigate that, but what I'm saying is that I'm more concerned about people taking an idea and running a little too far with it. And so I want to be really clear about this. I know that I've seen people both in the live chat and in the comments since the stream ended talking about their experiences having been in a relationship with someone with BPD. And I completely respect the experiences that those individuals have had because they absolutely have value. But to everyone else who is new to the idea of BPD, I do caution them from jumping onto the quote unquote crazy train of stigmatizing people with BPD. Like any mental illness or personality disorder, BPD undoubtedly has a range of experiences. So just because Amber apparently has BPD according to Dr. Curry, it does not mean that all people with BPD are like Amber or will do things like what Amber has allegedly done here. Okay, now with that set aside, let's talk about her cross-examination really quickly. This cross-examination was again performed by Ms. Bretoff. And although she at first did have a pretty good cross where she got a good rhythm of quick leading questions in to attack some pretty ripe areas, things seemed to fall apart from there. Now, her earlier questions largely focused on the area of bias. Ms. Bretoff asked about Dr. Curry's hired gun status as a paid expert witness called to testify for Johnny's side. She also pointed out that Dr. Curry is not board certified, although Dr. Curry did respond that she is a licensed psychologist. And Ms. Bretoff then directed attention to the fact that Dr. Curry's interview to be hired as an expert witness occurred at Johnny Depp's house over dinner and drinks. However, here's where things started to get a little bit weird. On this point about dinner and drinks, Ms. Bretoff seemed to suggest that Dr. Curry had had some kind of a date with Johnny before being hired. Dr. Curry instead clarified that this was an interview with his whole legal team and that, yes, Johnny was there, but she was there interviewing with the whole legal team. And Dr. Curry pointed out that although this is a little bit unusual to have an interview at Johnny Depp's house, given that this was a high-profile client, it was not unheard of to have this kind of interview. But Ms. Bretoff kept trying to Hulk smash that point, which only gave Dr. Curry the opportunity to explain and contextualize what that dinner was all about. Anyway, Ms. Bretoff also had a whole line of bad questions, in my opinion, that led to a weird exchange about muffins. Particularly, she asked Dr. Curry if she had told Dr. Curry's husband about how excited she was that she would be evaluating Amber, a public figure. And she also asked Dr. Curry if her husband then told Amber about Dr. Curry's excitement. But Dr. Curry responded, no, that's not at all what happened. And when Ms. Bretoff looked genuinely puzzled at the response, it seemed she really thought that she was going to get some testimony out of Dr. Curry to suggest that she was shirking some kind of professional duties here. Instead, Dr. Curry explained that it often is the case in her practice that they'll get a high-profile client to evaluate. And when that happens, she instructs all of her employees to clear the office so there is a higher level of privacy for that person. Because Dr. Curry's husband is familiar with Dr. Curry's practice, she said that he understood that there was a high-profile client in that day because of the way in which the employees had cleared. So Dr. Curry said she also asked her husband to pick up some muffins for the evaluation, as she often likes to do for high-profile clients. And thus we have Muffingate. And I'm sure there will be plenty of memes to come out of the chat and out of tons of people watching having to do with all kinds of muffins, adding that to Amico cream and alpacas and mega pints. This trial so far is full of memes, and to be honest, I'm kind of here for it. But anyway, in the end, I'm sorry to say this, but I personally think that Ms. Bretoff in my opinion, came across as a little bit too aggressive. Although there is totally a chance that jurors either don't mind this tone or maybe even welcome it if they aren't exactly dialed into Johnny's narrative, for my taste, I find it totally unappealing. Now, she did score some points against the Depp legal team, as I noted earlier, but in the end, I think Dr. Curry's testimony will probably stand pretty firmly in the mind of the jurors, given how this cross-examination ended up. Anyway, then we finally heard Officer Melissa Saenz, an officer from the Los Angeles Police Department. Unfortunately, this last witness was again testimony by video deposition, so it also got very boring and repetitive very quickly, as has been the case in the previous video deposition testimonies. It's really unfortunate that this was so boring, however, because the information that came out of this testimony was actually very good for Johnny. Particularly, Officer Saenz testified that she was one of 2 police officers who first responded to a 911 call made from Johnny's downtown LA penthouses on May 21st, 2016. She was asked all kinds of questions about details in her field officer notebook, carrying reports materials in her vest, and body cam footage. But honestly, most important to her testimony was about what happened when she and Officer Haddon arrived at the penthouses that night. She said that when they arrived, she essentially had to insist to come inside to ensure that there was nothing wrong in there, since the call was about a domestic disturbance. No one who was there seemed to want the officers there, and no one gave any information about what had happened other than that Amber had gotten into an argument with her husband, who had already left. Officer Saenz testified that at the time that she arrived, she did not know who Amber was, and she did not know that Johnny Depp was in any way connected to the domestic disturbance. And when they did enter Penthouse 3 and Penthouse 5, they looked into every room to see if there were any signs of domestic violence. And according to Officer Saenz, they saw none. There was no vandalism, no destruction, no broken glass. And when she spoke with Amber, she said that she was about 2 to 5 feet away from her and saw no evidence of injuries to her face or body. When asked about the details on Amber's face, Officer Saenz said that Amber had redness on her face consistent with crying, but saw no swelling, no bruising. When asked about her conversation that she had with what she identified as a generic white male, who we know to be Rocky Pennington's ex-fiance, Josh Drew, Officer Saenz said that he said nothing that would suggest any kind of crime or incidents of domestic violence had happened. And likewise, when asked about her conversation with Amber, Officer Saenz said that Amber never answered any of their questions and never complained about any injuries. Nevertheless, Officer Saenz said that she left her card with her in case she changed her mind and wanted to talk to them. In short, no one said anything, and Officer Saenz saw nothing during this whole visit to suggest any crime or any incidents of domestic violence had been committed, despite doing a very thorough investigation of the premises and of the people involved. Now, there were a lot of photos and pieces of video footage that were referenced in this testimony, which we didn't get to see. This honestly made it harder to pay attention. However, if the jury was able to latch on to at least the high points of this testimony, it would go a long way to support Johnny's narrative, specifically as to Amber's alleged injuries and the condition of the apartment after the argument on the night of May 21st, 2016. So with that all together, I would say that it was a very good day for Johnny Depp, and we'll see what day 10 brings. But did you see the testimony? If you did, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you found this interesting or at least informative. And if you did, I'd love it if you could hit the like button. It does help us with the YouTube algorithm gods. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can find out when the next video is uploaded, and much more immediately so you can join us in tomorrow's live stream of this trial of all of the court testimony of day 10 right here on this channel. See you in the next video.